This is Weird Renegade Witches blog. Hit us up when you want some real motherfucking work done. Of course, go to the Weird Renegade website. See the phone number there. Of course, if you want to do one-on-one monthly lessons, in addition to one-on-one lessons that I work with individuals very closely on various issues going on in their spiritual life. And of course, understand that work is separate from it, but at times I will work with individuals one-on-one, and work is also part of it. So that's a, but understand it's still a separate cost and frequency. However, one-on-one monthly lessons are ending this month and will start up again. And I may start something different, but I'm going to add it. I'm probably going to talk about it at the end of this. But you already know that art is occultism. Occultism is a motherfucking art. And you know Wayward is about that revenge, redemption, and motherfucking responsibility. However, there's been a lot of frequencies going on and a lot of confusion, and I have questions. And as a woman, I feel that I'm being overpowered by masculine energy every single day. And then I feel as a black woman, you see I'm using the word feel, so therefore I'm psychotic, according to some psychologists. But I feel that as a black woman, I'm being attacked. They are trying to neutralize me and drown me and shadow ban me, right? So let's just kind of go through some things and let's see and let's understand what the fuck I'm feeling here. You know, we've been over here listening to all this Trump business, right? And we're listening to energies of, let's see, Elon Musk leaving Trump administration, capping turbulent tenure. He didn't pardon NBA young, was it the NBA young boy? I guess he didn't done his time and sacrificed and trafficked enough. We didn't even know his ass was in jail. The last time we seen him, he was over there in Colorado, and they was talking about that he was going to be in Colorado on some kind of house arrest. This nigga was in jail. He's trying to go after Assata Shakur. For what? He commutes sentence of Larry Hoover after decades in prison. He allegedly then let out Todd Chrisley and his wife, the Chrisleys, and we already know what they was doing. So all these motherfuckers didn't serve their time, right? But then let alone is connected to the Jubilee of Pope Francis of the five stages of the underground and letting out prisoners. Well, these prisoners done did their time. You know, they didn't sat up, they didn't did shit, they didn't traffic, they didn't did all the above, right? But you still have Blueface and Tory Lanez in jail. That's what we do have. Makes you wonder. But more and more, maybe we should kind of sit back and study what's going on. There's a lot of frequencies that they have intertwined with us. And basically, we're under ritual. I went back and I was looking at that dumbass shit with the South African president and Trump and Elon. And Elon standing up there fiercely and looking at the South African president like that was something, and then whipped out a damn PowerPoint television. And then later on, the South African president was laughing about the shit, right? And a couple of times we've seen shit happen in the White House and Trump interviewing these or talking to these individuals and embarrassing and humiliating their frequencies. Because we already understand in America well enough that what they talking about, the genocide of white folks in South Africa, is on some cap shit. Because we already know the history, especially if you go back, into the 20th century and you research and you see the pictures, you see the movement, you see the live frequency, especially if you go back in the 90s and the late 80s and 90s, and you used to see the war and the frequencies and the people fighting, almost similar to the civil rights movement, that energy. So we already know what it is. We already know that the white folks went over there, stole the land, killed the people, enslaved the people, sexualized the people. And we already understand that Sarah Bartman effect was that was something that was created. It's hard for you to understand that all these years they didn't told you that was a whole woman, but they don't want you to know that was a whole man, and that was a whole experiment and tribal experiment that they were doing, especially in shaping the men to look like women and so on. And more and more you seeing that in Africa, with black men being shaped like that also here. So and I told you, anytime that you see and understand that they're cutting body parts off, they're hiding something. They're degrading. They've been doing this since lynching. So I thought you people knew. You guys are under the impression that that's Dutch over there in South Africa. If you believe that's Dutch, then I'm not shocked. We all know Russian Jews. I'm sorry, German. They're Germans. Russian Germans. They're all over there. Okay, they're hiding under different identities, and maybe you should reevaluate them motherfuckers that they allegedly flew here in America. And could those be criminals? Because they've been kind of moving around in that frequency where they're moving criminals around. You're going to be shocked when your police or your military all have accents. They all sound like South Africans or third world people. Okay, they're out here playing around with martial law. That's just a test dummy. And they want those people to go into black neighborhoods. You go walk up on them and it's a South African. They're playing games out here, right? But we're going to get to something, because we're going to talk about sleeper cells. So that was a whole farce, right? However, I started to kind of wonder about some things, from the pardoning of these individuals to the humiliation and frequencies. What is happening in front of our eyes, right? And usually you pardon people, I thought, on the way out. So what's happening? There's a lot of energies going on. They were talking about that some of those executive orders are on hold, and because I always thought, how can there be an executive order again if he's been convicted? And I just always had questions about that, right? But let me see here if I could find it. Federal court rules Trump tariffs illegal, terminating them immediately. You see what can happen? Is that part. They had him come in one way, but they know that they can basically terminate all that shit. The federal court rules Trump tariffs are illegal and terminating. Right? So let's look at some things that may be interesting. Let's kind of go backwards. And let's look at social media. I was listening to this podcast that popped up on my feed, and it was a person named Apollo the Original and Bishop John Wick. Okay, so you already know what that's about. And their conversation was about humiliation rituals. And I'm assuming, I don't know who is who and what is what, but the person was talking about LeBron James and Dwayne Wade are boulets. LeBron James and Dwayne Wade are not boulets. It doesn't mean because you are initiated in Masonic energies that you're boulet. Boulet is basically, it's almost like an inheritance. You born in it. These two niggas come from a interesting background, and I think one of them, mama, may have been a crackhead and then sleeping around with people's teammates, and then I think LeBron James drugged a teammate and have him out there on them streets, and he's going through it. However, they, in so many words, they were talking about the ritualistic behaviors and sacrifices that's been going on between these two, especially with Dwayne Wade's son. However, he went into this whole synopsis and story tale of Egypt and how the Egyptians would sacrifice their children for wealth and prosperity, and to, as he called it, the wizards. And I said, is he trying to talk the way old pastors used to talk about the Egyptian energy? And I said, now he just made up some shit. I'm not saying what it is what it ain't. He just made up some shit, because you can clearly see he just made it up, right? And the funny thing about it is that through the Bible, if he was to really talk, you would see all the time there were sacrificial energies. And the interesting thing about it is that you can even go into Ecclesiastes and see the sacrificing of children, especially when they say give my child up to God. I'm paraphrasing, like if your children are in your way and you're a parent, then you can basically sacrifice them and give them back to where they came from. In so many words, Abraham, well, Isaac, that was a sacrifice. Him kicking his son out, Ishmael, that was a sacrifice. Hannah, she sacrificed Samuel to Eli, to this God. That's the same scenario. You have Hagar, she sacrificed Ishmael to the demons. She is shit. King David, who did he sacrifice his fucking daughter to? Who? To what is it? The half brother. The daughter, what's her name? Tamar. So in reality, all through religion, there has always been humiliation and sacrifice, right? So we can't just point it at one thing, but we also have to understand, what does this mean? Where are we going with these frequencies? Because this energy also taps into gatekeeping or having handlers, right? So we just kind of going down some energies, because again, we're going to talk about some sleeper cells here. And I was listening to something, and they were talking about gatekeepers of the industry, and they were talking about, what's her name, Issa Rae, Sheryl Lee Ralph. They were talking about Janet Jackson being one. They said the up and coming one is going to be Alicia Keys. And then they said in the social media world, they talk about that Kai little nigga. And then they talk about Drewski being a initiation person, which being a handler and initiator are two different things. Okay, so these are very, very interesting. And I guess this past weekend they had the American Music Awards, and of course we seen a humiliation ritual in front of our eyes. Who? Jennifer Lopez. We all this time Jennifer Lopez been doing what she doing, but after that shit went on allegedly with Puff Daddy, and you guys may connect it to him, but no, they've been trying to pull her down for a minute because of how she got there, and there's very clear there's some things that she's done, and now they got her in Spellwork and binded, and she can't get out that shit because, as they say, fame is a binding spellwork within that industry, and she's aging. However, whatever she have done, they have now got her in jail, and so now she's kissing up on women, she's kissing up on men. That have not been her frequency, and then she done sold her children, and now we don't know which one is who. Okay, so that's a great experience, and now they're talking about the next person up for humiliation, as we're going to say, is Tamara Hall. They said just watch her. They said look at the situation with, of course, Smokey Robinson. That shit didn't make sense, but he's been in the industries for so long, and he's of a certain age, so therefore he's under humiliation rituals. All of this shit has been a severe case of humiliation rituals, right? Because we want to be a little layman, and somehow we're caught up in it. Even when we look at Patti LaBelle, Shaka Khan, in addition to Gladys Knight, we don't know who and what is what. And Shaka Khan, I call her the baby out of the crew. Now, it was very interesting. We don't know how many Patti LaBelles and Gladys Knights there are, because on the simple fact that one minute they look this way, the next minute they look that way. The last time I seen Gladys Knight, she looked like she was close to death. It was death in her eyes. She was forgetting words. She was tired. She was closing her eyes while she was singing. Then the next minute you see her, she's looking good, looking young and everything. I said, okay, they playing in our faces. However, Shaka Khan is the ultimate humiliation energy. Okay, they're humiliating her, they're disrespecting her, they're tearing down her frequency. They have her in Paris burning fucking lingerie looking ballroom ass shit, so you can tell a homosexual is the one who dressed her. You heard me, I said homosexual, which is different from a gay man. Okay, I'm not for every fucking body, and you're not going to sit up here and tell me anything different. So they got her under some kind of man energy, male, some kind of homosexual who's humiliating her. Okay, for years and decades, they have always in the industry have heterosexual women marrying gay men or homosexual men. Look at Melba Moore. She married a homosexual man, and he managed her for many years, and he stole all her goddamn money. Patti LaBelle is one of them. She was married to a homosexual, and he almost tore her down to the fucking ground. It kind of reminds me of, what is it, the Valley of the Dolls, and I forgot, and one of the actresses in the movie was married to a gay man. That's constant. A lot of women a lot of preachers and so on. But it's a ritual. It's a cult-like frequency that they intentionally will have women under these type of men for humiliation and for gatekeeping. Okay? So when we're going back to Trump, we have to understand we have been watching humiliation rituals in front of our eyes. We've been part of humiliation rituals, and we are in a humiliation ritual. Okay, let's tell some truth. Fuck these entertainers. What the fuck are they doing to us? When he interviewed whatever Selesky and that South African president and all that mess, we just watched a humiliation ritual, and in addition to humiliating the United States, that's a fucking ritual as a whole, and there's an investment, and we're missing it because we're getting caught up in this superficial bullshit, but we're not realizing as Americans we're under ritual, right? I mean, think about it. There are people talking about when you want some money, you go to Dubai to re-up your money. So when they talk about, okay, I'm going to go, I need to make some change. I'll go get humiliated for a week or a weekend for some coins. Humiliation, right? Again, it goes back to the sleeper cell. So when I'm really looking at all of this energy, what is happening? What is going on? Because you keep hearing me talk about a sleeper cell, right? You just heard me talk about humiliation. I've been talking to this energy. Her name is Fatima Ibram. And Fatima Ibram, I met her actually on social media, and we've been talking to each other for some years now. And now she's writing a book called Moors to Arab. Okay. And she's, of course, she's a Middle Eastern woman, and she talks a lot about the energies of what's going on in the Middle East and the different hierarchies that are there in male figures. In addition to, she talks about how the United States is friends with, of course, the Middle East, is friends with all these we call superpower countries, and everybody is on bullshit because the South African is friends with the United States. The Zelensky is friends with the United States. It's all bullshit. It's all an act. It's all a Hollywood scene. Okay. The bottom line is that it's not so much as president. It's really sacrificing, I call the civilians. So we're watching this shit no matter what. And we're all being sacrificed, right? For their wealth, for their prosperity, and for their control, and for their mind control, and for their humiliation. We're under a big Masonic ritual, and we don't even know how we got here, right? So anyway, as we were talking, she was breaking down all that stuff to me, because I always felt that interesting energy with Gaddafi and Hussein. I said, that's weird. And so as she's going on, we were talking about Osama bin Laden and that bullshit, and they all were friends. You know, he would come to the United States all the time. So we were like, what the fuck is all that bullshit? Anyway, she was talking about how the different energies that they have in the Middle East of men who's supposed to be like the leads and so on are all full of bullshit, and they're all Masonic. Okay. And so, you know, just within that conversation, and I said, hey, I asked her, I said, do you think that technically the Middle East is basically the sleeper cell? Because things are not adding up, and as things are progressing in the United States, it doesn't seem so much India, but meaning Hindu Indians, I'm just keeping it ignorant. It appears to be Middle Easterns. So she was like, you hit it. Is the Middle East have always been there. So I started to talk to different spiritual constituents, kind of getting their vision and what they've seen. And more and more, it appears we under what I call a new age slavery, slave-based society, humiliation, and basically we've been sold out. I've been trying to understand what the fuck is really going on. So there's an understanding that we have lapdogs, we have flunkies. And the flunkies, of course, are the Indians, the Asians, meaning I'm talking about your regular Asians, I'm separating them, and then your white folks, right? However, the Indians are nothing but slaves underneath the Middle Easterns. The Middle Easterns are paying them. Okay? Then comes in the Asian energy. You have Hong Kong that's I believe it's Hong Kong that's coming in talking about that they'll take the international students that Harvard is not going to take, which is on cap. Because we understand in Hong Kong, they actually have slaves. The slaves they have are the Philippines or the Filipinos. So the Filipinos are over there in Hong Kong working as slaves, meaning as housekeepers and so on. However, when we come back here in the United States and we talk about how we've been stupid, especially as Black people, we should be absolutely ashamed of ourselves and the behaviors because we didn't open our motherfucking eyes. First of all, looking at some of the energies and going down, you will start to match up the humiliation. So basically, America has been bought, yes, by third world energies, but by the Middle East. When you start to understand and you go backwards in time, the pandemic and that George Floyd shit was financed. And it was financed to really break down America. And when you really start to understand the culture, you'll start to be like, what the fuck? Let's start with their portfolio. The Middle Easterns own a hell of a lot of shit in America alone. They own a hell of a lot of land. They're messing up the farming system. They're dehydrating the land. Farmers been talking about it. They have been doing documentaries about how there's water, like is a drought. And then as they go and research, they find that some Middle Easterns own farmland. And somehow they're drying out the land. You're wondering why weather is being fucked up. One minute is hot, the next minute is not, the next minute is sunny. Look at who's investing in that. Research who are the investors in your media. Okay? Like, for example, what is it called? You have iHeart. You have, what is it? I'm trying to see here. Live Nation, iHeart, Rock Nation. They own the majority of the luxury world. It whooped me to hear Louis Vuitton. We already know Gucci, Valentino, Porsche, was it Beaumont? I just heard Rolex, Tiffany's, Chanel. All those luxury houses. They have a big investment in Italy. You think you getting clothes from Italy? But no. There's a big investment in Africa. You have to reevaluate what the just reevaluate what the fuck is really going on. They have their hands in media. They didn't bought a lot of the artifacts, a lot of American items. They are the, as they call, the original Moors. They've stole a lot of jewelry and sold it. Part of the slave trade. Some of them believe that you have to go back to Abraham, to Sarah and Hagar. They go down into the nomad and also Abraham presenting himself as a Moor. And you have to remember, we're reading this book, they say before Christ, but no, there's energies that are happening that we are seeing the hybrid, because Abraham was a hybrid. And then had a child, Ishmael, which is considered biracial. Which created a whole other energy. This is above your pay grade. The Bible's telling you. That's why in Africa, a lot of them do not like the Moors. From the Moroccan energy to Somalian, which connects back to the Muslim frequency. So as we're looking here and we talk about humiliation, let's talk about humiliation. Because we as Black people, we're under humiliation, especially as women and Black women. They hate us. They've always hated us. And they've always hated any source of a woman. Okay? So let's start there. When we go back to certain frequencies, they don't want to talk about, because now we're going to change them from Middle Easterns into Moors. The Moors have always went into different parts of the world, especially different parts of tribal energy, and manhandled the woman. When we go back to Hagar, we're actually reading the after effects of the takeover. Because the original Muslim or Islamic energies, again, was woman. It was women who ran it, and it was a woman relationship. Very similar to the Mamawata energy of originally how that started. Women have always started religion and the connections because of the wisdom and the proverbs and the work and the feminine frequencies that we do have. But then it was taught that a woman, a fallopian, her fallopian tube was demonic. It's the devil. It looked like a goat. So the woman vagina was always considered demonesque. Okay? So within this culture, again, once we found out about Hagar, it had already been taken over by men. And if you go through the different frequencies, you will understand through religion, women have always been basically trumped and taken over. And then whatever it was before, the religion changed. They exiled women out of tribes saying that they're witches, they're this, they're that. They're doing that now, and they're still doing it. Okay? So we have to kind of look at the frequency here. So when we get into America, there has been a strong takeover of women and putting us under these gatekeepers or homosexuals or these trans men. When we go back to the energies of this whole Kaya and T.S. Madison, I wasn't tripping too much of their argument. I'm tripping on, is Kaya under T.S. Madison? Is this some kind of Paris burning house? Is she under a ballroom? Because you had to listen within that argument what the fuck T.S. Madison was saying. And I believe every motherfucking word that Kaya is saying, that she was sabotaged and blocked. Yeah, you were. But is T.S. Madison your handler? Because things went to the left back when they were working together. And I don't know if some of you remember this, a mojo bag appeared. And T.S. Madison had that mojo bag and was talking about it when they were, doing their show. And then she opened up the mojo bag, which was very strange, and opened it up, and whatever it was, I swore it was some kind of bones, it rolled out in front of Kaya, which was intentional. From that day forward, it was hell on earth. Okay? Because now I realized, at first I thought that was work that went to the left and it was havoc in hell. No, that was intentional to cause chaotic energy and for a takeover. And it was down for Kaya. That's who that work was for. And then T.S. Madison would get behind Kaya, who's a biological woman with a uterus, because we're going to talk about that weird shit that popped up on my feed with Just Hilarious and that person trying to argue her down about her uterus. anyway, whopping his chest behind Kaya's back, and then brought in Monique. So when I'm listening to the frequencies, he was saying with that argument that Kaya didn't have the right to use certain words, I guess faggot and punk and some other words, and she deserves to be canceled. And I said, damn, I said, Kaya's like myself. She just speak her truth of what it is. And she not really tripping on somebody being gay or whatever. She just keep it real, keep it right. And I notice they feel that you should not say anything about them, but they can continuously talk about your vagina, you smell like fish, you this, you that, da 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 da. But at that point, I learned, oh shit, we mixed up the Me Too movement with the cancel culture. The Me Too movement had nothing to do with the cancel culture, but we seem to confuse it. Because even when the Me Too movement came out, motherfuckers were not canceled. Okay, some of them may have been going to jail, but they wasn't canceled. The cancel culture, I realized, came from the homosexual community. You hear I'm saying not gay, because it's not the gay men. It's not the gay community or gay females. Because back in the day, if you say I'm gay, it didn't matter if you was male or female. However, in this case with the cancel culture, that's a cold game and a cold piece of spell work that we didn't see, that it was the homosexual community and the trans community that really started that shit. And was basically censoring the voice and monitoring. And that's something to look at. But what's also very scary is that how through decades and centuries, they've always attached these type of men to heterosexual women. So you got to go back to Esther and the eunuchs and the concubines and the harem. Because I know some of you people have ESL and you have a hard time understanding concubine. Well, I got to Google fairy it. Well, you do the fuck you want to do. Because when I had listened to, who was I listening to? Let's see here. I was listening to something very interesting, and again, it was on social media. Just Hilarious was talking to this woman called Lene Vinay, and they say that gracefully shuts down ignorance surrounding gender. And it looked like there's some kind of media energy called the black media. And I found it very interesting, and she was saying some dumbass shit. And I'm about sick and tired of these later millennials and these Gen Zs talking air magic and creating this energy like they know what the fuck they talking about. In a minute, in the next 5 years, all this talk about non-binary and all, was it non-binary and all of this cis and all this bullshit that they talking, they gonna say that you motherfuckers have that you have a psychosis and that you're crazy. Trust and believe. You're going to be a whole new study. You don't see it now, and in the long run, you're going to learn that some of these people come from asylums. You're going to learn that these people are sponsored, and you're going to feel real stupid because there's going to be a long-term damage of all this mess. And what Just Hilarious was saying is, you're a woman. When you have a uterus, you get this Lene person from this black media talking about in so many words, you cannot put a finger on what's a woman. And then she was talking about, and I'm paraphrasing, talking about in so many words, like a biological woman is a female, but gender construct is a woman. I said, what the fuck is she talking about? So then there's that confusion of when these women transition themselves into a man, but still have their uterus and still having motherfucking babies. Bitch, that's still a fucking woman. Just like a man that turned himself into a woman, you're still a fucking man. Bottom line. But there's going to be even more confusion because they have incubator babies. And they didn't need a uterus to make it. So there's a whole bunch of confusion, and they have black people on the bandwagon with this dumbass shit. But again, black people are not seeing the long-term damage that all of this is going to cause. And believe me, just like I told you, sooner or later, they're going to say all of this shit is autistic. That's what sexual addiction, hypersexuality is coming. So what else is coming is them talking like that. They're going to study you. Because just hilarious is right. And these people are not educating anyone. There's nothing to educate. You have a psychosis. You're bipolar out here. We're going to say allegedly because I'm not giving a diagnosis. The behavior is very bipolar. Multiple personalities. Psychotic. And across the board, there has been a humiliation against and on black women. One, having them under gay men or homosexual men, trans men, having them as our gatekeepers and handlers. But the fucked up thing about the humiliation, again, it goes back to the sleeper cell. The sleeper cell, which are the Middle Easterns, especially the men, hate us. And they have been trying to control the black woman forever because the black woman is the power. Black women and women, you better see what's really going on. One, I peeped the fact that they was trying to have this movement to get rid of alcohol in the United States. Who have an issue with alcohol big time are Muslims. They are monitoring the canes. You can't wear this, you can't wear that, even though that's in a whole nother country, but just peep it. That means there's Muslim investors. My spiritual constituents pointed out that Vice was pretty, vocal with their energies. Next thing you know, they have Muslim symbols all behind them. They changed their scope. 60 Minutes, investor, Middle East. That's why they're censoring shit. Go back and really look at YouTube. Who in the fucking invested in YouTube and changed all of the conspiracy theories and information that was there? You better check that. Right? All of a sudden here in the United States, more and more designs are coming up. I'm talking about fashion designs are coming up about hijabs and covering up. I told you guys they intentionally invested into whole shit to break women down, especially black women, and then having black women dress like homosexuals and trans men. Hoish. Then invested into Fashion Nova and niggas got cheap with their shit. Then created a whole energy in the luxury world and having silly ass black people, including myself, buying luxury shit but still investing in them, and their pockets are getting fatter by our money. We need to just pawn all that luxury ass shit. It's too late now, but we need to get our money back in some kind of way. They invested in smash and grabs. They wanted their money back. You wondering why you over here seeing these fucking entertainers on fucking tour all the time? They are slaves to those people. They don't give a fuck about no Beyonce or Mary J. Blige. That's not their problem. These are just nigger women. Put their asses on the whole straw and let them cakewalk. The fuck? Control your woman, polyamorous. Control your woman, make them suck your dick and have anal sex. That's a ritual. Take away their positions. Most black women work in the federal, state, and county. Get rid of them jobs. Terminate them. Retire them. Make them marry. Give a lower age on food stamps. Dry out their money. Famine. Cause famine. Cause famine to a black woman. Cause famine to women. Because they need to be married. Because we need to control them. Y'all didn't see that coming. Dry out the black community. Don't hire their black asses. Shadow ban them. Don't educate them black bitches. They can move around and live in neighborhoods that some of you niggas can't live in. Because let's keep it real, keep it right, because we already know the racial energy. A black woman can move around in different neighborhoods as long as she doesn't have a black man living with her. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm not saying it's right. I'm just looking at it, the realities. And I think we forgot about that. White people move away from us, but a black woman can actually live in the neighborhood. Jealousy, envy, hate. Let's invest in neighborhoods with churches where black women or prayer warriors can get their work done and pray us away. And let's let them know that white God put them in slavery. They need to get on Islam. Matter of fact, put them on the Mauritius and confuse them with chakras. But chakra and Orishas go hand in hand. Get them out of it. Then once we tear it down, we'll put them back in it. And then remove them as pastors and preachers. And we're not going to really have mother of the churches anymore. Put in place a man with cum in his throat. Then have him singing in a choir with cum in his throat. So they're getting a whole bunch of spell work with cum. These niggas out here sounded like Gargamel. You guys under a fake church. The Antichrist, anti-woman. You have T.D. Jakes talking about telling his daughter, don't drop the mic, and he walks away because he's about due to have his jackal babies. Did y'all see that good belly? And then he walks and then humiliates us with his dick hanging out right there. Because you know I'm a dick connoisseur. This is nothing but a study of sex and humiliation and how to control the woman. I told you I was going to be a therapist, but I also, under the energies of sexology, where I studied sexology. And I interviewed two porn people. This was in the late 90s when I was going to school. Linda Lovelace, she was in San Francisco, in addition to Annie Sprinkle. And Linda Lovelace is very interesting because she was known for her oral throat sex. So it's a difference between oral sex and throat. And the throat energy, and I knew back then about the frequencies of them using chakras in the throat to open it up in its feminine form, which taps back down into the root, which is your lower part, which is your private part, which leads back into your spinal cord, your lower spine. Then you could use the darker, what I call the darker side of Orishas, to hit the different parts of the body and open it up. That's why they had you niggas in Orishas. They have you niggas doing yoga, practicing shit, Egyptian shit. It's above your pay grade. Your money is drying up because you have Middle Eastern investors who don't want your black asses to get ahead, and they shadow banned you. And anytime somebody say anything about it, you are not heard. They invested money to get rid of your fucking life and then trade it with Indians. So if black people say anything about it, you won't be heard. That's why you have these Indians, Hindu Indians, who are manipulating. Now they are the new black people. That's intentional. But they were impoverished, in poverty. They are intentionally not hiring you. That's why they fucked up the hiring scene. The pandemic fucked up everything. You forget with that border shit, that Middle Eastern dude came from a border talking about y'all gonna see. I'm paraphrasing what the fuck he said. What I'm trying to say to you is that we are being humiliated. We are part of a humiliation ritual. There's an investment for the humiliation. And there's an investment for the black woman to be humiliated. And there's an investment and the white woman is just collateral damage. In Africa, they purposely and intentionally put those Asians over there, them Chinese, to take over. That's an investment. Fucked up the men, right? They intentionally caused the Holocaust with crack. Because you better find out where heroin came from. It also comes from the Middle East, and drugs. Y'all just like, oh, they're oil. It's more than oil. Y'all better really peep. Y'all better peep the cartel and investments, all these investments. Check out their portfolio. Look at America. America is going Middle East. And then the Middle East is giving funding and backing up the Asian energy, because now the Middle East is Asia. The Spirit talked about that. The Bible talked about that. Y'all didn't want to believe it. You talking about white people enslaved you. Well, who do you think gave them the drugs and the money to do the enslavement? They have y'all believing the only place you from is Africa. That's why you better take a second look at Juneteenth. Those wasn't Africans. or enslaved Africans in Texas. Those were enslaved Native Americans, indigenous people. And some of them they kidnapped from Mexico. They don't want to talk about how they went over into Mexico and kidnapped a lot of those people who were black, indigenous, Central and South America. They don't want to talk about that. They don't want to talk about that who was really enslaved were indigenous tribal people. They lied to you about all them colors and foods. They know it. That's why that's why there's such an investment in it, because they don't want you to know the truth. You better look at all those DNA places, the real investors. We already know the top part, the face, but what's the truth? They have you guys out here in these hijabs and shit, Philadelphia, Michigan, the sleeper cells. And them niggas be gay as a motherfucker. You wanna understand? Check out their culture. Let's really look at some spellwork. And you're like, well, what's the solution? I just gave the fucking solution. Look at it for what it is. They got you under dummy shit listening to a black woman in a uterus and all that dumbass shit. Meanwhile, their plan is to have you under a man. They want to make it as difficult for you as possible. Own your own fucking business and learn how to sew again. They're getting rid of they're getting rid of American things and art and replacing it with noodle shops. The spell work is basically the foods that they give you. Even Mexican food is a fucking spell work. All of that is spell work. It's on the same lines over there in Louisiana, in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. There's a school, I think it's called Progress Elementary. There's this teacher, her last name is Garcia, and I'm assuming her son also works in the district that he was on administrative leave. And apparently she's a kindergarten teacher, a kindergarten and I guess first grade teacher. She created a fight club among black children. They always put these people in black neighborhoods and black systems to fuck us up. Kindergarten and prison pipeline. She had the kids up in the bathroom fighting each other. And the school hasn't got rid of her ass yet. And these Mexican people, and when I say Mexican, I'm talking in ignorance because I'm putting them all under it. El Salvador, whatever. I don't give fucks. The bottom line is that they're going to school to get their master's and PhDs in social, in psychology, social studies, counseling, social service, all of that shit. And then working in the school system with black children and working around them to fuck them up. Counselors, you got to watch them because they are paid to fuck up our children. We're going to have a generation of fucked up kids and we're not going to even know how it happened. That's why you have to monitor your kids, especially question them and be in their lives and understand who are their educators. Because they love our kids to go to a school psychologist. Just like the whole mortuary business. How come you guys didn't catch that they didn't through spell work to get black people out of the mortuary business just to do grave stealing, to do palo work, steal shit and come up. Especially here in Southern California. Some of these people be having gold caskets. Huh. When you leave, that casket is open, bitch. You go back, unbury your loved ones, ain't no head there. Ain't no rings, ain't no jewelry. They may not have their toes. Cut their fucking leg off, have that shit sitting up in their house and worshiping it and collecting money, have that shit buried up in their business. Meanwhile, black people out here talking about uteruses and women and woman gender construct, and you being fucking shadow banned and humiliated and disenfranchised. People out here doing fight clubs with your kids. They're fucking with your money. That's why I said, black women, own your own business. You can do it. Just fuck this dumbass shit. No use of you going to church, because this new church is antichrist. There's an investment. There's an investment for your Christ so you could become a slave. And then put the woman under man. And Islamic man at that. I have a spiritual constituent. She have a house in DC. She hired a Muslim brother to help take care of her house and be a fix-it man. He was too busy plotting on her to move in his family and shit. He felt she couldn't run her own house because she's a single woman. So I told her, I said, get rid of that nigga. Because he was doing too much. And he was too much in people's business. And really not trying to be helpful, but trying to just prove you can't run this. It was something going on with her plumbing. So she had to hire some people. They open up the plumbing, the pipes. It's fucking semen, and that nigga put semen in it to cause havoc. Nigga. I said, get rid of him. She know when she see that, she know. And then you got to be careful. They don't do work on you. I had one doing work on me. We were cool in the game. He would help me, this and that, cool. He was a Somalian. Then I said, what the fuck is going on? He got on his wife's nerves so bad that she was gone for a month. You got to watch it. You got to watch these men. Because we all know that marriage is for them. We're getting silly ass Kevin Samuel niggas talking about, yeah, you know that woman, she won't have my baby. And then, you know, my sperm and this and that. And I had to tell her, you can't force me. And I'm not going to sit up here and say, well, yeah, some women are shady. Some women just want you, so they feel having a baby. That's a low self-esteem issue. That's inadequacy. Some women want some coins. But 99% of the time, men are the ones who want to have a baby because they want a place to lay their head. They want to be able to come back. They want to control the woman. So we're not going to play any games. That's why you guys suck each other's dicks. And I will say it again. Oral sex, oral throat sex, anal sex, that is a male's ritual. Most disease is created in the man's energy. AIDS, HIV, herpes, gonorrhea, syphilis, chlamydia. There's a report, is out of the journal. I think it's called JAMA, JMMA journal. Look it up, read it. If I'm wrong, it might be with a G, but I swear it's with a J. And there's a journal that a spiritual constituent forwarded over to me. She's a biologist, and I read it, talking about HIV and how it works. In this journal, medical journal, look it up, it talks about that through vaginal vagina, women cannot give another person HIV, or can they get HIV because we have we're going to say the fluid, the mechanisms to kill it. It is stating that most women who basically get HIV/AIDS is through anal sex, the tearing of the rectum. So when we're hearing about these niggas calling themselves passport bros and all this shit, HIV, we better look and see what's going on. And they were talking about that more and more black women are having anal sex because they're trying to please their man. We could say this is allegedly, but let's do some research, because I was telling her, I said, you know what? I heard that same thing with AIDS back in the 80s. That women get it vaginally. Not vaginally, but through their rectum. And also oral sex. If the woman has a cut in her mouth or whatever. Things to go back and research. Because a lot of women were also getting it through blood transfusion. And also doing heroin, needles. What does that tell you? They was talking to Magic Johnson, and Magic Johnson called HIV an infection and called AIDS a disease. You guys are so distracted with the energies of Puff Daddy. And what I found very interesting, just to kind of jump a little bit, is the energies with Cassandra. And the energies with Cassandra, what I found interesting with that is her mama sold her. They lied and said the mother gave Puff Daddy 20,000. No, she sold her daughter. And they're talking about that her mother was getting checks. Then they had the audacity of Kid Cudi. I said, I don't want to hear this love affair. Now they're talking about Nipsey Hussle and his girlfriend, and how what's her name? Lauren London? Is that her name? Were all involved in his murder. I said, bullshit. That Lauren London and Puff Daddy was involved in his murder. I said, no. They know the what's up, what's going on with Nipsey Hussle that people are not talking about. And they all was in it together. Puff Daddy had nothing to do with that. Now it's something else he has something to do with that if I hope you guys understand, but it's not that. Because they always doing the same thing. And they know damn well what happened to Nipsey Hussle and what it's connected to and why people are afraid to talk about it. I'm tired of hearing about this fake ass case. Fake ass case. You out here looking at Pictionaries and shit and sitting in the church overflow listening to bullshit, to recorded shit. And then they're up there sketching all these fake ass pics. That's a fake story. And why is it and I keep asking, why is it in the federal? And I don't want to hear shit about no fucking 50 Cent talking shit. Because he's in the same category as Nipsey Hussle and the rest of them. We ain't got time for that. In my opinion, I feel the real motherfucker is Suge Knight. That's the real motherfucker. Go back and study Suge Knight. Puff Daddy, Jay-Z ain't shit. Nah. The shit, The shit that was going on at Death Row, No wonder they put him in. That's a whole Aries. He's a gatekeeper at the top and he's a gatekeeper at the bottom. So they turned around and gave us a pseudo nigga, Whack 100. That's not Suge Knight. And you like, is this bitch up in Suge Knight? Nah, I'm just looking at the real nigga. I've seen too many energies where they feared him. How do you take an East Coast nigga and make him claim West Coast? I don't give a fuck what he was doing with Digital Underground. And you know I'm talking about Tupac. How do you, what, huh? And what type of pull is that? What's your sponsor? Nah. Everybody out here talking about Puff Daddy killed Tupac and Biggie. I don't know about that one. I don't know what's going on. That's the MVP, Suge Knight. I don't give a fuck what anybody's saying. People talk shit. Diddy and Jay-Z are too famous to be real. That's the real black. That's the darker side of Jesus. That's black Satanism, bitch. Because y'all not noticing, once they took down Suge Knight, that's when things got interesting. We just talking. We just having conversation, right? I was looking at Basketball Wives. Brandy, Evelyn. Wait a minute, let me just go back a minute. Did y'all hear that shit? They been talking about that damn Puff Daddy. He was wearing a damn hijab, watching Cassandra have sex. So at first I thought it was some Indians that invested in this case. It's Middle Easterns. Anytime you see a damn hijab, you better best believe there's some Indians involved in this shit. Not Indians, Middle Easterns. And some of you will say, well, Indians are da-da-da. No. You got to go to the core. Because now I'm going to go back to Basketball Wives. I was looking at Brandy, Evelyn, and Jennifer. Are y'all going to tell me that they don't look weird and sound weird? And you could clearly see that they under some homosexuals. You could clearly see they in somebody's Paris burning house, in a ballroom house. Because either that's not them, because they look like, it's something about their energies that look very dudeish. Or they have really transformed themselves into looking like a man. And aren't y'all noticing that all their plastic surgeries, from Basketball Wives to the Atlanta Housewives or whatever, they all look like Chinese people? They look horrible. And that one that they call, I think they call her Ming Lee. She's troubling. Then you have the other one on there that's now in a hijab. What's her last name? Renner? I said, oh, Middle Easterns didn't invest in Basketball Wives. See? Anytime you see that, peep it. Jackie's daughter just don't like her. I was just like, it's very clear. Yeah. Hi. It's very clear they favor the father. And I thought about it, I said, Doug and Jackie getting a divorce, that'd be crazy. They might just sleep in separate rooms. Brandy going crazy. She acting lesbianism. That Thai chick, I could have swore I seen her on Love and Hip Hop Atlanta messing with Mimi. Isn't that her? I said, why didn't she focus on basketball? So it's like as if they either want black women to be lesbians or under a man. And that's what I'm talking about. Hating black women, shadow banning us, disarming us financially. That's hatred and jealousy, putting us under ritual, oral and anal. Even have the studs going, using fake dicks, putting our mouths on it, and anally. That's a ritual. Studs are now under ritual. You under a man in ritual. You got your president humiliating people. You should know that Trump is in jail or whatever, dead or in jail allegedly. We don't know what's going on. They have him looking like poverty. Y'all haven't been peeping his suits? He's not tailored anymore. His suits are big and colorful. Odd. That's like they then took him out the federal jail and said, nigga, put this on. They were talking about Harvard, how he is trying to basically cut funding. And I told somebody, I said, ever since that pandemic shit, he been on the loose and angry because he had investments in COVID and Corona. And I was listening to this old interview with, I think, Frank Zappa. And Frank Zappa was talking about, we're going to call it general labs and private labs. And he was talking about the AIDS epidemic being created in private labs. And taking the bacterial energy and creating all of this in private labs. And somebody said, well, what the fuck is a private lab? Harvard, Yale, Columbia, Tuskegee, Howard, UCLA. These kind of off-brand medical facilities with investments. His investment didn't go well. They were talking about. They was allegedly saying he was pissed. So what didn't Harvard do? And in a minute, they're going to crash all these Ivy Leagues, and then there's an investor. And the Indians are just the slaves that they're letting them get in. They played the cold game with that whole affirmative action. So let's not educate Black people and Black women. When you go back and look at Harvard's their yearbook in the 80s especially, it was very multicultural. Now you don't see that. So is that what it is? The investment in private labs? And they was talking about Barron couldn't get into Harvard. Well, how what you mean? We all can see what's going on with Barron. We're not going to play. Penn State. Low entry in attendance, or whatever they want to call it. Not very many people are trying to register into Penn State. They're losing programs. Huh? I know for a fact that these schools make their money off of international students, good money, and donations. So you crash America, move everything abroad, crash Las Vegas, move Las Vegas to Dubai. That's all they're doing. They crash in America to move it somewhere else, so somewhere else can make money. And humiliate us and have us in famine and poverty. That's why I said we should be embarrassed of ourselves that we helped the Middle East make money off of luxury, and then crash the fashion industry to create hijab clothes. The fuck? That's why I said sew your own shit. Go to fashion school or whatever you need to do. Take a side energy. Go to school, learn business, whatever you need to do. Nursing. They out here having private labs creating different type of frequencies out here, and you don't even know it. You don't even know where it came from. It came from a private lab with investors. as they create all these drugs and keep causing holocausts. Everybody keep talking about, well, black people could have did this and black people could have. No, watch so you can see how they keep disenfranchising us. The investment. Now it all makes sense. And they always attack the youth. They've done so many reports, studies, experiments on how to abandon a black child and what's the cause. The bottom line is that the black child needs his mother. Yes, you do need daddy, but it's very important for a black child to have their mom. They're fucking around with C-sections. They want more black women to have C-sections because it's a difference in having a C-section and really having the child go down your canal is beneficial. And it restructures the body. Unless you need to have a C-section, don't. They don't want you to have your fucking placenta, and as soon as your baby pops out, they want to cut the umbilical cord, which they should not do that. But maybe because they want it for stem cells, so they can help people like Lee Daniels that look like he's sickly, hair, different sicknesses and so on. So you telling me dialysis was just a whole research of how to implement stem cells? Is that why they're closing a lot of the dialysis places now? Because now they figured out the what's up? They say as soon as your baby come out, get the placenta. Because that's how they was getting stem cells from abortion fetuses. And that's going to be my next work. Working with people who've had abortions. So hit up Wayward, abortion shifting, and reading into the energies of the child. Handling your postpartum, your mental disorder, the shockment of your body. Dealing with the fact that you've had quite a few abortions by some motherfuckers and you still have the energy inside of you. Then you have the audacity to have another kid without even cleaning out your body. And then you wonder why your kid is very interesting because he's 3 different niggas that you didn't have a baby, that you didn't have abortions by. And from. Some of y'all people have miscarriages and don't even know why. Yeah, medically, but we're talking spirit right now. How people sit up and do work for you to have a miscarriage or for your child to come out disabled and to have the umbilical cord wrap around the child. That's a whole different type of works. They're just finding different ways, again, to disenfranchise. Fuck your kids up. Fuck you up. Anyway, this is Weird Renegade Witches blog. Hit us up when you want some real motherfucking work done.